In this video, I want to talk about choosing your path and a bit about my journey with Venus and a bit more about Venus. So if you're interested in hearing any of that, stick around. Hello, I hope you all are doing well. I am Aradia Arcanum. I am a magical practitioner of the occult and esoteric practices. And I primarily work with Venusian energy. So in this video, like I said, I'm going to share my thoughts on choosing your path. And I want to talk about this because of my experience and hearing from others with their experiences, and why I think this is important to have this awareness of what that even means, choosing your path. And like I said, a bit about my Venus. So grab a seat and let's get into this. So choosing your path. What are the first thing? I'm going to go over a few steps. Or a few thoughts on how to achieve this. So first of all, choosing your path. The first thing you do is do not choose a path. So what do I mean by that? So many of us as newbies come into the world of magic and get inundated with so many things because of the world of the social world online. There's so much information available. And what happens is, as someone that's walking in the door to this new world, you want to fit in. And what happens is you see everyone practicing magic and you hear them have these conversations, this terminology about magic, and you're taking notes and you're like, I want to know, I want to be in that conversation. And because you feel like you have to be in that conversation, show up in a certain way, you dive into choosing a path. So because you think that's the way that it's going to get you in that conversation. But the problem is when we dive into these paths in the beginning, and even as an experienced practitioner, but by this point, right, you've explored, we want to make sure that a path is right for us, so we do the homework. So this is the same process that you should take as someone that is a beginner. You begin by seeing what works for you, exploring, getting your hands dirty, diving in, and just finding out what you resonate with. And if you find that you resonate with one thing more because you have experienced a bit of it, then you begin to lean toward that direction. I know that for myself, I went through in the beginning, after coming out of Christianity, taking that pause to figure out what the hell life has to offer. I then figured I just dove right into Wicca, a Wiccan coven. And while the experience was, it was wonderful and it gave me a wealth of knowledge, there is this thing about allowing yourself to practice, sow your oats in the magical world, because I would have found out that that is not right the way that I really wanted to go. I just felt like I had to dive into a specific path in order to do magic, in order to be in the magic community, right? Because you hear a lot of people. It's almost like if you are at a business gathering and you don't have a business and someone walks up to you and they're like, oh, so what do you do, right? And you're like, you don't have an answer because you don't have a business, right? While you're at the business meeting, you may want to learn, right? You may want to learn from the other people that own businesses. How do you achieve this, right? You may not necessarily have your business at that time, but you need to learn, right? You need to know what this is all about. So it's kind of like that, right? So if you're in like a magic community and they're like, oh, what do you do, right? What magic do you do? So you're just like, oh, I do this, I do that, right? You want to feel like, it makes you feel like you have to choose a path, but you really do not. Unless you are someone that grew up with this one thing that you loved and you resonate with, and you know that's who you are, then, and there's a path for you, right? Obviously, right, you want to go to that path, but I would say even in that, we evolve, right? As we grow older, we evolve. The more knowledge we attain, we evolve. Our perspectives shift. So even in that, right, when you come into this magical world, this metaphysical awakening, you want to figure out what it is that works and resonates best with you. So that would be the number one thing, right? When choosing a path, when you want to choose a path, don't do the exploration. That's just my opinion. Do the exploration before you feel like you have to dive into something. And then, I am all about exploration. I'm all about seeing what works, doing it, experiencing it. I'm old school. So we had to like just figure it out. We didn't have the things that we did, we just had to experiment, figure it out on our own, see what works, be led and guided by our intuition. But now we are in the age of information, and sometimes it's a gift and a curse because there's too much that is available for you, so you don't know which way to turn. So you just, you're inundated with all of this information. So that's what I would say. I would say, when you are trying to don't feel like you have to. And as a matter of fact, you may be someone that's eclectic and not. You'll find that you don't want to choose a path. You'll find that you want to do it all. You want to just experiment, and you are this magical practitioner, and you want to not be put in a box. Maybe you're someone that is not. You flow intuitively all the time. That's your natural state. You don't want to be confined to this form of structure, right? There's some people that love it, right? Ceremonialists love structured ritual, right? So that's what I would say, right? Don't think you have to choose a path. Don't be bullied into choosing a path, right? Take your time, experiment, explore the different practices, sit with it. This day and age, everyone wants to rush. The microwave magic. Sit with it, see what works, write down what you liked about it, the pros and the cons. So it's all in the alchemy of exploring. So that is what I wanted to say to that. Now let me share with you a bit about my journey with Venus. It's been a long road, a tough road, a road filled with anxiety. And the reason why I say it's a lot of shadow work involved when you work with Venus, because when you work with Venus, at least in the way that I do, I wanted to align with the Venusian aspects, the Venusian archetype, the virtues of Venus. And all of these things will challenge the way anything you do, right? To be in alignment will challenge what you're doing that's out of alignment. But the things that it challenged was things that I had to show up in these aspects. So when it came to self-love, so the reason why I say it has been like a up and down bumpy road for me, it's because I've been going through a period of so many changes and have gone through, grief and loss. And so from that, I had to, rise up and work through navigating emotions, navigating wanting to just live, navigating wanting to be present, right? So by me working with Venus and self-love and balance and pleasure, a lot of times when we go through things like depression or great losses, pleasure is so far removed, right? There's this, and I'm speaking specifically, right, because of the last maybe 5 years of my life. There's been a lot of changes. And if you follow astrology, I'm a Taurus rising. And Taurus, Uranus has been in Taurus for some years now. So it's been taking me through the ringer with the changes. And that's been a struggle because it was a focus on who I am, how I showed up, how I wanted to show up, what was innately inside of me, which is, Venus, as I say all the time, Venus rules my chart. So, which is why I felt I take the road of working through the lens of aligning with those Venusian principles, because it is innately who I am. It's just that things got twisted and turned around because of life. So that's what happens, right? When we go through certain things in our life, it derails us, takes us off track. So what we do is we work to get ourselves back on track and align. And that's what I've been doing by working with Venus. Now, I want to be clear. I say this to everybody and to everything. I want to be clear that when I say I'm working with Venus, I'm also working with the other aspects of my chart as well, because I need to know how Venus is going to show up in every part of my life, right? So that means I need to know how Venus is going to show up with Mars, these Martian elements, and how Venus is going to show up with Mercury, and how Venus shows up with Jupiter wonderfully. But I have to, when you work with the Venusian way, as I like to call it, and go through these different gates of initiation, of awareness, of knowledge, awareness, and embodiment, it takes you through from, right, the underworld. And it's just like that descent of Inanna. It is 100% just like the descent of Inanna, right? It is almost as if you're at the gate, at the doorway of getting ready to descend. The doorway is, you have attained this knowledge that you have to do this thing, right? And then the descent is the awareness of what you need to let go. And when you get down there, right, when you have arrived through all the gates, you're like, oh, now I'm naked. Now what do I do? So it's this moment of going through the realization of those things I have let go, because the way that I was holding on to them and carrying them and my perspective was incorrect, because these things were formed based on the things that I have been through and how I grew up. So in the underworld, I had to learn to walk within the shadow, understand what was in the shadow. And I did this by working with Venus, working with those aspects of Venus. How did I show up in harmony? How did I show up in pleasure? How did I show up in self-love? How did I show up in giving love and receiving love? And all of these questions were arose within this underworld place. And once you have this awareness down there, you begin to start embodiment, right? Start embodying these things, and then you come up, right? So you're coming up, you're making the ascent from the underworld and picking up each element that you left, but you're picking it up differently, right? That no longer, you're not going to see that thing the same way. You're not going to see that attribute in the same way, that part of yourself in the same way. So everything you're picking up is new on the way back up. So while you went down with the same things, right, they're coming back up with a new light, a new perspective. So this is this is what the journey is and has been, right? So I mentioned it's a different walk of the underworld. I've mentioned on my other channel how I, going into the underworld, that was more on a walk of the awareness of awakening to the left-hand path. But this journey is was more about going into the shadow aspects of myself that prevented me from walking in the Venusian aspects. There was a lot of times when I was going through those stages of grief from the loss of my daughter that I didn't even want to. Right. I was like, what's the point of anything? There was such a gray cloud over me where it was just this anxiety of what next, right? So in that state, right, you're like, how do you self-love? How do you pleasure? So these things I had to work through, right? That is the beauty of life. You have to figure out how to navigate, because life ebbs and flows, right? It's not always going to be good. It's not always gravy. So you have to learn in those moments, how do you navigate? And I could tell you one of the biggest things is you have to be kind to yourself, because you're not always going to be, there was moments I was not walking in this Venusian current. Right? There was no way that I was going to be harmonious. There was no way that I was going to be able to understand pleasure. There was no way that I could walk in and give myself self-love. I had to pause and be okay with that part of my journey. And then, slowly understand, navigate it, and then ease these things back in. And I think that is one of the things that we have to understand, because we beat ourselves up for we know, right? We have these things that hangs over our head, right? That, oh, I know I'm supposed to be doing that, or I know this is the right way. And we beat ourselves up for not walking in that way, right? Many of us beat ourselves up for not having a daily practice and all of these things, but we have to understand that there's cycles to life, right? There's cycles that we have to go through. Everything is not, right? It's not there's beauty, there's color, there's different elements, and there's seasons, right? There's even the universe goes through these cycles, the planets transit, right, around one another, right? So we are as above, so below. So when we are in these lower states, right, the way that we navigate them is be kind to ourselves and know that, okay, this is going to pass, because it's the law of nature. It is going to pass. And if I navigate through this, I'm going to come out and I can pick back up, or pick up, not back up, because some things you need to not pick back up, but pick up and begin to work on balancing out whatever that looks like for you. Mine is, as I'm talking about right now, is Venus. So going through all of that, I had to pick back up working with my Venus and loving. When I say I'm loving my Venus, I'm loving myself, all parts of who I am. And loving the Venus inside of me that wants to explore and wants to explore pleasure, wants to, enjoy all the things, right? I'm a Taurus rising, so we love sitting back with a glass of wine and having a meal and enjoying the scenery, and I'm a Libra, so all things in balance, Libra sun, all things Venusian. And since that is such a big part of me, that is why I worked on, after coming out of the underworld, the ascent, why I worked on, even while I was in the underworld, worked on getting myself back to aligning with those Venusian virtues. And it may be different for each of you, right? Everyone has their planetary lord of their chart. Mine is Venus. However, even if Venus isn't the lady of your chart, hey, we all have Venus, right? So the virtues of Venus is something that we all need, right? Because what is Venus, right? Harmony, beauty, pleasure, abundance, prosperity. She is one of the great benefics in astrology. She wants to give and explore, right? So these are things that we need in our lives, right? We need balance. We need harmonious energy. So whether your Venus is the lady of your chart, or even, right, maybe she's, she could just, your ruler could be Mars, right? And you still need your Venus, especially, right? Because, Mars is like this initiating energy, this force, this fire. So we need, Venus to come in and kind of, have this harmonious balance. But in any case, we all need some Venus. And so that is my journey with Venus thus far. It's a ever evolving practice with working with Venus. Went through all of those things, entailed incorporating remediation, where I had to figure out the weakest parts of my Venus and make it stronger, right? And confidence, and especially where Venus is at in my chart, it could be a bit obsessive. So there's always that Achilles heel, right? That you still have to say, okay, wait, I know that this exists. I know I can go this route. So let me just take a step back. So awareness is key, first of all. But that's my journey with Venus. And a little plug, if you're interested in working with your Venus to bring pleasure, magnetism, harmony, and learn how to love yourself, come explore Venus with me, especially in the new platform that I created, the Venusian Magic Circle. You don't have to pay, right? If you want to go deeper, there's paid tiers, but you could come on over there for free. There's things for free, conversation, posts, exploration. But, and on April 1st, I keep forgetting to put this out there, but on April 1st, I want to say it correctly, pronunciation, but I'll try. Veneralia, which is Venus Day, where the Romans honored Venus. The women would go adorned in flowers and things, and they would wash the statue of Venus, and there's this whole ritual that they did on that day to honor and venerate Venus. So I will be holding a live ritual over on that platform, and it's totally free. Since it's new, right? The live rituals that I do over there are currently free. So if you want to tap into your Venus, it's going to be a bit sensual, right? We're going to do a ritual wash, and just to do tap into our sensual energy, awaken it, if you will. But the information for that platform. The Venusian Magic Circle will be in the description of this video. If you want to tap into your magnetism, come on over there and let's conversate. Let's have a chat. But that is it for this video. Until the next video, I love you all and into the shadows.